15-year-old Amelia bounced in next, already dressed for school in that effortless way teenage girls manage. "Mom, can you drive me to Sarah's after school? We have that project due." "Of course, honey. Uncle Rowan might come with us. He loves meeting my children." I nearly choked on my coffee. My children? As if I'd been relegated to sperm donor status in my own family? "Actually," I said, standing up, "I think I'll pack a bag." Mara's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide her flash of surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said. You want to play house with your old friend? Go ahead. I'll find somewhere else to sleep." "Grant, don't be ridiculous. It's just the couch." Just the couch. In the house I'd been paying the mortgage on for 12 years. In the home where I'd changed diapers, helped with homework, and fixed every broken appliance while she focused on her advertising career and social climbing. "Here," she said, pulling a spare blanket from the linen closet. "This should keep you comfortable." The blanket was thin, scratchy, the kind we used for beach trips. She handed it to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, honey," I said, taking it. "I'll try not to drool on the cushions." Ross looked uncomfortable. Amelia was already lost in her phone. And Mara? She was checking her reflection in the microwave door. I walked upstairs to our bedroom. My bedroom, technically, since my name was the only one on the deed, and packed a small suitcase. Clothes for 3 days, toiletries, my laptop. As I zipped it closed, I could hear Mara on the phone downstairs, her voice bright and animated. "Yes, everything's perfect. Grant's being so understanding." Understanding. Right. I carried my bag downstairs, keys already in my hand.
"Hotel?" He didn't look impressed by the distinction. "What exactly do you want to know?" "Everything. Who is Rowan Carrick? What's his relationship with my wife? And why is he suddenly so important that I'm homeless?" Marvin quoted me a daily rate that made my accountant's soul weep, but I agreed. Some things are worth the investment. "Give me 3 days," he said. "I'll have answers." I spent those 3 days in a strange limbo, went to work, came back to the hotel, ordered takeout, and tried not to think about what was happening in my own bedroom. Ross texted me twice asking when I was coming home. I told him soon. Mara didn't call at all. On Thursday evening, Marvin called. "We need to meet," he said, "and you're going to want to sit down for this." We met at the same diner where Rick and I had talked. Marvin slid a manila folder across the table. "Rowan Carrick," he said. 45 years old, works for Midwest Distribution Solutions, lives in a condo he can barely afford. But here's the interesting part. He didn't go to college with your wife. I opened the folder. Photographs, documents, printed emails. He went to college with someone else entirely. A woman named Jessica Chen, who happens to work at your wife's advertising agency, same department. The photographs showed Rowan at various locations around town, restaurants, hotels, coffee shops, but he wasn't alone. "That's Jessica," Marvin said, pointing to a brunette woman in several of the photos. "And that's your wife." The three of them together, laughing, talking, looking very comfortable with each other. "I don't understand," I said, though part of me was starting to. "Your wife's having an affair," Marvin said bluntly, "but not with Rowan. He's the coordinator, the logistics guy.
He books the hotel rooms, provides alibis, makes sure schedules line up. Classic triangulation." I stared at the photographs. Mara and Jessica sitting close together in a restaurant booth. Rowan at a separate table, keeping watch. So who's she having an affair with? Marvin flipped to another section of the folder. More photographs. Mara entering a downtown hotel with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, well-dressed, confident. David Morrison, partner at Hartley Morrison and Associates, big law firm. Married, 3 kids, very concerned about his reputation. And Rowan helps coordinate their meetings? Exactly. He's like a personal assistant for adultery. Makes sure they're never seen together in public, handles the logistics, probably gets paid well for his discretion. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not just betrayal, humiliation. I'd been worried about the wrong thing entirely. While I was focused on Rowan sleeping in my bed, my wife was across town with someone else. There's more, Marvin said. Your wife and Rowan have been seen at the county clerk's office twice in the past month. What for? That's what we need to find out. I closed the folder, my hands shaking slightly. 3 days ago, my biggest worry was sleeping on an uncomfortable couch. Now I was staring at evidence that my entire marriage was a lie. What do I do now? I asked. Marvin leaned back in his chair. That depends. How angry are you? I thought about Mara handing me that thin blanket, her dismissive wave when I'd questioned the arrangement, the way she'd called me dramatic for having feelings about being displaced from my own home. Pretty angry, I said. Good. Anger's useful. Keeps you focused. I drove back to the hotel, but sleep was impossible.
Instead, I sat at the small desk and started making lists. Everything I knew about our finances, our assets, our legal situation. If Mara wanted to play games, she was about to discover that I was very good with numbers, and I was done being understanding. The next morning, I called in sick again. My boss, Tom Bradley, actually sounded concerned. Everything okay, Grant? You never take time off. Family situation, I said, which was technically true. Take care of yourself. The quarterly reports can wait. If only he knew that my family situation was about to become a lot more complicated. I spent the morning at the county courthouse, pulling property records. It's amazing what you can find in public documents when you know where to look. Deeds, tax records, utility connections, all there for anyone willing to dig. Rowan Carrick's condo was purchased 2 years ago. Co-signer on the mortgage, Mara Solon. My wife had co-signed a mortgage without telling me. In most states, that would require spousal notification. In Ohio, there were ways around it if you knew the right lawyers. But it got worse. The utility records for Rowan's address showed 4 occupants, not 2, 4. Electric usage patterns suggested a family with children. Water consumption was consistent with a household of 2 adults and 2 minors. I sat in my Honda in the courthouse parking lot staring at the documents. 4 people living at Rowan's address. Mara had co-signed the mortgage. And somehow, none of this had ever come up in casual conversation over dinner. My phone rang. Ross. Dad, when are you coming home? This is getting weird. What do you mean weird? Mom's acting all nervous and jumpy, and Uncle Rowan keeps asking questions about you, like personal stuff.
About your work, your schedule, whether you have any health problems. Health problems? That was an interesting angle. What kind of health problems? I don't know. Mental stuff, I think. He asked if you ever seem unstable or unpredictable. Mom told him you've been under a lot of stress lately. Stress, right. The kind of stress that comes from discovering your wife is running some kind of elaborate con game. Listen, Ross, I need you to do something for me, but you have to be careful about it. Okay. I want you to pay attention to the conversations between your mom and Rowan. Don't be obvious about it, but listen, and if anything feels wrong, I mean really wrong, you call me immediately. Dad, you're scaring me. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to protect you. After I hung up, I drove to Rowan's neighborhood. Nice area, not as upscale as where Mara and I lived, but respectable. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, the kind of place where people minded their own business. I parked across the street from his condo and waited. At 3:30, a school bus stopped at the corner. 2 children got off, a boy who looked about 7 and a girl maybe 5 years old. They walked directly to Rowan's building and disappeared inside. Children? Living with Rowan Carrick? Children who, according to the utility records, had been there for at least 6 months. I took photographs with my phone, careful to stay inconspicuous. The kids looked happy, well cared for. The boy was carrying a backpack covered in superhero patches. The girl had pigtails and was clutching a stuffed animal. Whose children were they? My phone buzzed with a text from Marvin. Found something.
Yes, the irony wasn't lost on me that I worked for a company with the same name as my wife's lover. Small world. First, I pulled our joint credit card statements for the past 6 months. Mara had always handled the household expenses, and I trusted her to manage things responsibly. Apparently, trust was my first mistake. The charges were revealing. Expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel rooms booked on nights when she claimed to be working late. Charges at children's clothing stores even though our kids were teenagers.
But the most interesting charges were the regular payments to something called Carrick Consulting Services, $500 a month for the past 4 months. We were paying Rowan for his services, whatever those services were. I dug deeper into our bank records. Mara had been moving money around, not huge amounts, but consistent transfers from our joint checking account to a savings account I didn't recognize. The account number was partially visible on the transfer records. A quick database search revealed the account was jointly held by Mara Solon and Jessica Chen. My wife had a secret bank account with her coworker, an account she'd been funding with our household money. My phone rang. Ross again. Dad, something really weird happened. What kind of weird? Mom and Uncle Rowan were looking through your desk, going through your papers and stuff. When I asked what they were doing, Mom said they were organizing your files as a surprise. What files? I don't know. Tax stuff, maybe? They had a bunch of documents spread out on the dining room table. Tax documents. That sent a chill down my spine. Ross, I need you to be very careful.
Don't let them know you're watching. But if you can see what documents they're looking at, try to remember. Okay, but Dad, this feels really wrong. Should I call the police or something? Not yet, but keep your phone with you. And if anything happens, anything at all that makes you uncomfortable, you call me immediately. After I hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen. Mara and Rowan were going through my personal documents. They had access to my tax records, my financial information, my identity, and Rowan was a convicted identity fraudster. I called Marvin. I need you to check something, I said. Have any documents been filed in my name recently? Loan applications, credit requests, anything like that? Give me an hour. While I waited, I decided to take a more direct approach. I drove to Rowan's condo complex and knocked on the door. Jessica Chen answered. She was prettier than her photographs suggested, with intelligent eyes and an expression that immediately became guarded when she saw me. "You're Grant," she said. It wasn't a question. "And you're Jessica. We need to talk." She glanced over her shoulder, then stepped outside, closing the door behind her. "Look, I don't want any trouble. Neither do I. But I think we both know there's already trouble." She was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "You know about David," she said finally. "I know about a lot of things. The question is, how deep are you in this?" "Deeper than I wanted to be." She sat down on the steps leading to her door. It started innocently. Mara needed someone to cover for her occasionally, provide alibis when she was with David. I thought it was just a normal affair, messy but not dangerous. But it's not just a normal affair. No, it's not. She looked up at me. Rowan's got them convinced they can manipulate the divorce proceedings, make you look unstable, unreliable, get Mara a bigger settlement and full custody of your son. How? Forged documents, false medical records, staged incidents to make you look erratic. She paused. They're planning to have you declared mentally incompetent. The pieces clicked into place. The questions about my mental health, the access to my personal documents, the payments to Carrick Consulting Services. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I have kids too," she said, glancing back at the door. "And this has gone way beyond what I signed up for. Rowan promised David would help with my expenses, make things easier for me and my children. But now they're talking about serious fraud, document forgery. If this goes wrong, we could all end up in prison. So help me stop it." She was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want me to do?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. "Marvin, you need to get down here right now," he said, "and bring a lawyer." I looked at Jessica. "Think about it," I said. "You know how to reach me." 20 minutes later, I was back in Marvin's office, staring at a stack of documents that made my stomach turn. 3 loan applications, Marvin said, all filed in your name in the past 2 weeks. Personal loans totaling $75,000. I never applied for any loans. I know, but someone did, using your social security number, your employment information, and your signature. He handed me photocopies. Good forgeries, but not perfect. The signatures were close, but not exact. Someone had been practicing. "There's more," Marvin continued. "Medical records filed with your insurance company. By the time we're done, no judge will believe anything you say." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It was recording.
Keep talking, I said. My lawyer loves this stuff. Rowan lunged for my phone, but I stepped back easily. He wasn't exactly athletic. Ross, I called. Come down here, please. My son appeared at the top of the stairs, looking relieved to see me. Pack a bag, I told him. You're coming with me. He's not going anywhere, Mara said, finding her voice. Ross is staying here. Actually, he's not. See, I've filed for emergency custody, something about his mother being involved in criminal conspiracy. I looked at her coldly. Funny how that works. Ross disappeared back upstairs. I could hear him moving around, packing quickly. Grant, Mara said, her voice taking on a pleading tone. Please, we can work this out. It doesn't have to be like this. You're right. It didn't have to be like this. You could have just asked for a divorce like a normal person. Instead, you decided to commit federal crimes. It wasn't supposed to go this far. It was just supposed to be simple, clean. Nothing involving identity fraud is simple or clean, Mara. Ross came back downstairs with a duffel bag. He looked scared but determined. Ready, Dad? Good, let's go. As we headed for the door, Rowan called after us. This isn't over, Grant. You have no idea what you're up against. I turned back to look at him. Actually, I do. I'm up against a small-time criminal and my cheating wife. And I'm a financial analyst who's very good at documenting evidence. I smiled. I like my chances. We left them standing in my living room, looking like their world was falling apart. Tuesday morning brought news that made my coffee taste like victory. Patricia Hendricks called at 7 a.m. Rowan Carrick was arrested an hour ago. Parole violation, identity fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. He's looking at 5 to 10 years. What about Mara? She's next. The district attorney wants to interview her this afternoon. I'd recommend she get her own lawyer. And Jessica? Safe in Columbus, giving her statement to federal investigators. Her cooperation is going to make this case airtight. I sat in my hotel room. I'd decided to stay there until the legal situation was resolved, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: satisfaction. Not happiness exactly, but the deep satisfaction that comes from seeing justice served. Ross was staying with Rick temporarily, which he seemed to prefer to being caught in the middle of his parents' war. Amelia was with Mara, who was probably trying to explain why Uncle Rowan had been arrested by federal agents. My phone rang. Mara. Grant, please, we need to talk. Talk to my lawyer. This is destroying our family. Think about the children. I am thinking about the children. That's why I'm making sure they don't grow up thinking fraud and adultery are normal. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. David promised. David Morrison, your married boyfriend who was paying Jessica Chen's bills? What exactly did he promise you, Mara? Silence on the other end of the line. Let me guess, I continued. He promised he'd leave his wife once you got a big divorce settlement from me. He promised you'd be together once you had full custody of Ross and half my assets. He promised you a lot of things he never intended to deliver.